Hello, YTPC. Ethan, Parsimonious Piper here. Today we've got a morsel for mental manducation. But first, in this little Briarworks stubby bulldog that I got at the Muletown show, I'm smoking some Peterson Old Dublin. Now, this is an English Latakia Virginia Orientals with a bit of black Cavendish thrown in to kind of smooth it out and give it a very slight sweetness. Very different flavor profile from something like my Mixture 965 or some of the other Englishes with Cavendish in it. It's good. I definitely like it. Like I said, not the sweet Balkan like a 965, but a very nice, mildly sweet English. Nice stuff. Today I'm going to touch on, briefly, the religion of science. A week or so ago, Mike, Cainrod Piper, talked about the God from the machine, the Greek dramatic ploy that when things got drastic and completely out of hand, a God stepped in and saved the day or changed the situation. And that's how a lot of people who do not believe in God look at everyone who does, that somehow we pull God like a rabbit out of a hat to answer the unanswerable questions. Well, that isn't the case. What I want to talk about today is science as religion. A lot of those of us who are who do have a faith in a God, and right now I'm not specifically talking about my Christian faith. I'm talking about a faith in a creator in general. We're often thought of as people who just magically invoke God to answer the unanswerable. And that we have, let that truck go by, that we have faith in the unprovable. Well, quite frankly, so do people who put all of their reliance on science. Let me show you what I mean. You see, the scientific method requires that you observe something in nature, that you develop a hypothesis about that something, and that hypothesis be provable, true or false. And then you test that hypothesis, look at the results of your test, and then you go back and you reevaluate your hypothesis. It either strengthens it, modifies it, denies it entirely. That's the scientific method. The scientific method is always questioning. Now, probably the linchpin in the discussion between people who do believe in a God, a creator, and those who do not would be evolution. Very specifically, Darwinian random evolution. And it's a very convenient theory in one sense for the atheist, and that is that we can't prove it or disprove it. It does not subject itself to the scientific method. In fact, in that sense, it lies outside of science. You can't come up with an experiment that will prove or disprove evolution in the random Darwinian sense, or in any of the pseudo-Darwinian senses that have developed over the last 150 years. roughly. They don't subject themselves to provability, to deniability. Now, as a mathematician, one of the things that I am very interested in is probability. And let me demonstrate why I think those of you who put your faith entirely in science and deny the existence of a creator God, why the odds are against you. DNA relies on nucleotides, amino acids, among many other things, to form its helixes. Now, the simplest biological organism that the fossil record has provided us is a bacterium with about 500,000 pairs in its DNA. Now, some biologists have hypothesized that it's possible for a simpler organism with around 100,000 pairs to be viable. Well, what are we really dealing with, though, here? This is 100,000 nucleotides. They don't just have to be assembled in the right combination. They have to be assembled with the right order. And by order here, I am talking specifically of chirality, which is, if you recall from biology or maybe chemistry, it's the spin or the direction of a molecule. And a left-handed has a spin or a shape curve that moves like this, and right-handed are like this. Now, in DNA, the nucleotides have to all be right-handed. Turns out that in nature, those nucleotides occur very roughly in 50-50 as to whether they are right or left-handed. What does that mean? Well, that means that in order to randomly assemble the simplest posited organism, you have to have 100,000 of those things with a 50-50 chance of getting it right for each one, line up correctly just to assemble that piece of DNA. That doesn't bring life, that just makes it possible. Well, being a mathematician, I thought, let's break that down a little bit so that people get some concept of what that probability really means. Because what we're often told is, well, given enough time, right? The impossible will happen, given enough time. That random event that puts those things together. Okay, well, let's take a look at it. And I'm going to try and show this up here on the screen. We're talking about 100,000. Let's look at just 100 for now. So if we had a probability of 1 in 2 to the 100, we'd start out like this. Let h be 2 to the 100. Now, from your algebra class, you might remember that means that the log of h, we're using base 10 here, then is 100 times the log of 2, which is roughly 30 point something. Reversing that then, h is roughly 10 to the 30. So your probability of something happening when it's 2 to the 100 is roughly 1 in 10 with 30 zeros. That's pretty small. How small is that? Well, one of the proposed ages of the Earth, well, the solar system, the universe, is about 14 billion years. Now, suppose you and 99 of your best friends each flipped a penny once a second, trying to get all 100 of those pennies to come up heads on the same flip. You could flip for 14 billion years, and the number of seconds that you would have flipped is 4.4 times 10 to the 17th. That is nowhere near 10 to the 30th. So even if you flipped for 14 billion years, the odds are against you having gotten that one flip where all 100 of you got it at the same time. You're not even halfway there in terms of getting a 1 in 2 to the 100th odds event to occur. Now, this was just with considering an event that happened 1 in 200. But keep in mind, what we're really talking about is 2 to the 100,000. So multiply that by 1,000. And what you're really talking about is something that would happen not in 10 to the 30, but in 10 to the 30,000. So the probability of the smallest, most meaningless, simplest organism having come together randomly using probability is 0. In all reality, that number is as close to 0 as you can possibly get. That's what you are banking your life on. Now, quite frankly, that takes a lot more faith to me than believing in a God. Not telling you which God to believe in, but just generically, that takes a lot more faith that these guys have got it right than believing that all of this around us was actually designed and put together by something we still don't understand. But we do understand probabilities. That's where the math comes in. So that's just a little something to think about for those of you who cling to science and deny the existence of a God. The probability of this all being random, somewhere less than 1 in 10 to the 30,000. Just a little morsel for your Manducation. With that, folks, it is a beautiful, if chilly day here in North Carolina, and I am going to enjoy the rest of this old Dublin. You do the same. Light something you like. Enjoy your afternoon.